Veterans Day. I got Allie Burton in the studio here. I was at your 100th birthday party a while back. How old are you now, Allie?
Well, I can't remember when I was born, but it was a little bit over 100 years ago, they tell me. I can't confirm that.
A little over 100 years ago, and born in Kerrville, Texas, right?
Yes.
And came back to Kerrville, Texas.
Yeah, I spent all my growing up years here until I got off in college in World War II, and then I ended up coming back here.
Let's talk about World War II.
No, World War II, I applied for aviation cadets, went through pilot training. I wanted to get a fighter plane and go fight the war. There was a lot of patriotic feelings at that time, but I was turned around, put back in the training command as a pilot instructor. And I never did get into any combat over in World War II. I was instructing pilots.
And for the duration?
Yeah, till the war was over. And then I got out of the service and signed up to stay in the Air Force Reserve squadron. I went to San Antonio one weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer, active duty. And that was my Air Force Reserve training. Did that for 5 years until finally the squadron was called into active duty for the Korean conflict and the Korean non-war.
Yeah. That's where you were a prisoner of war, right?
Yeah, I was flying the F-84 jet fighters. And the day I was shot down, I was on a mission. There was about 36 F-84s going way north. The main target was a series of bridges across the big, wide Chong River.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one railroad bridge and two vehicular and footbridges. But the first two planes in were supposed to attack the anti-aircraft position. I was one of those, and that's not a very safe activity. Their specialty is knocking airplanes out of the sky. And when I made my dive onto the anti-aircraft station, about the time I was going to toggle off my two 500-pound bombs and then get out of there, just a split second before that, I got hit by one of those big 88-millimeter guns, and it flipped. I was in a steep dive position, and it flipped me over on my back. And when I tried to use stick and rudder to roll back up, neither one worked. All the controls were shot out, and here I'm headed for the dirt. Airspeed was 450. And I had to get out of there in a hurry, so I went to put my hand on the armrest where the ejection control was for the ejection seat. But my arm, due to centrifugal force, my arm flew up against the canopy and I couldn't get my hand down. I had tried to pull it down, but after a few seconds, some big old severe vibration started in on that airplane. And it was so severe, I knew something was going to fail structurally. And the vibrations finally, after a few seconds, something broke. I didn't know what it was until I started turning end over end. That airplane, it wasn't rolling side to side, it was head over heels. And then I knew what happened. The whole tail section broke off of that airplane. And I was trying to get my hand down all the time to get the ejection going, but I was having trouble. But finally I felt fresh air on my face. I knew the canopy was gone and the seat must have fired because I was sucked out of there. And I looked down to pull my ripcord from my parachute, and I saw I was in the seat, so the the ejection seat did fire. Apparently, when I was fighting to get the ejection seat going, I apparently grabbed the controls for the canopy and the seat at the same time. While I was looking down to get that parachute D-ring, I saw the airplane was a short distance before me, and I saw the thing exploded in a ball of fire. That was pretty dramatic. And I thought, my gosh, I just got out of that thing 2, 3, 4 seconds ago. I was almost roasted alive. But anyway, I undid my seat belt, kicked the seat away, and immediately deployed the parachute. I knew I was supposed to wait till I slowed down because training had said you might damage the canopy, but I didn't have that luxury of time. I thought any second I was about to smash into the ground. So I deployed the parachute. When I did, the first thing I tried to do was look up, and I couldn't raise my head. So I thought, what's wrong here? I reached up behind me, and I found out the impossibility had occurred. The thing I felt behind my neck was the webbing strap, chest strap for my harness, parachute harness. It was impossible for it to be behind my head, but that's where it was.
Was that from flipping over and over again, you think?
Yeah, one thing I could figure out was that sudden jerk of the parachute opening at high speed. It must have jerked that chest strap up across my face. Of course, when I ejected, I had my jet helmet on and my oxygen mask, and I guess that strap hit my oxygen mask, kept from tearing my nose off.
Yeah.
And it went on up, jerked my helmet off, and then that strap went across the top of my head, made a cut, and the top of my head was bleeding. My scalp was bleeding a little bit, but then it locked behind my head and held my head down so bad. I was trying to push the two ends of that chest strap together to undo it, bring it around front where it belonged, and I couldn't do it. It was too tight, and I heard some popping noise, so I looked down on the ground. First time I looked down on below where I was, and the thing I saw was a bunch of soldiers down there with the rifles pointing up at me, fired away at me, and they weren't that far below me, and I guess I was half stunned. I threw my arms out, I hollered at them, I said, "Don't shoot, I'm okay." Well, that didn't make any sense at all. I kind of laughed at myself, and I said, "That's not doing any good, those guys trying to kill me." And I tried to jiggle my parachute hard. I reached up to try to get a riser and tilt that canopy. Maybe I thought it'd drift me away from those shooters. And then all of a sudden I saw the ground was rushing up to meet me with a strange feeling. I wasn't coming down, the ground coming up to meet me. And just before I hit, I saw the wind was blowing real strong and it blowing me backwards. And so I didn't hit real hard. I hit the ground as a glancing blow and rolled over backwards. And I threw my arm back to collapse that parachute, but it collapsed by itself already. And I jumped up. All I had to do was do the two leg straps, and I was out of my harness. I took off running. I didn't get half a dozen steps, and I heard this holler, and I looked around and I saw a couple of soldiers running up toward me, and I don't know what I was doing. Instinctively, I just reached down and pulled my pistol out, and I aimed at them. By the time I got that pistol up, I saw it wasn't two of them, it was a half a dozen or more. And I thought, well, it's not doing any good. Thank goodness I didn't try to shoot one of those guys. It would have been bad for me. But
they'd return fire, huh?
Yeah, well, they would have killed me for sure. They swarmed all over me, and then they made me lie down. We all lay down while those bombs were falling. when all that bombing was over from all those airplanes, a real strange thing happened. The silence that ensued was louder than the bombs that had been going off. The expression of the silence was deafening. Sure did fit that situation. But anyway, they marched me up after it was all that bombing was over. They marched me up to that hill where those anti-aircraft guns were. It's kind of a steep little hill. On top is real flat, but it is covered with soldiers. I couldn't figure why there'd be so many soldiers around. A couple of great big long, looked like 88 millimeter anti-aircraft guns. Immediately was looking for signs of insignia, trying to find somebody because they looked pretty hostile. Yeah, I was afraid they're going to shoot me, kill me right there. And I couldn't find any insignia on anybody on the collars or shoulders or arms. They were all wearing these quilted jackets and quilted pants. In a minute, there was a funny thing. I wasn't all that tall. I'm just a shade under 5'11" at the time, and every one of those people looked like they were shorter than I was. And they were all carrying some kind of small arm, carbine or rifle or burp gun, different kind of arms. But in a minute, they motioned for me to run off down that hill, and I looked around behind me, and there was about 5 or 6 of them lined up with those guns horizontal aimed at me, and I thought, no, you're going to use me for target practice. I'm not interested. And I'm talking to Blue Streak the whole time, trying to tell them, where's your commander? And that didn't work. I found myself all of a sudden say, Comandante, ¿dónde está Comandante? Oh, they didn't understand Spanish either. But I thought, well, if I don't run down that hill, they just shoot me standing here. So I better get up in the middle of these soldiers. Tried to approach that crowd of soldiers, and they just backed up. They wouldn't let me penetrate them, but I kept trying, and pretty soon I saw a couple of soldiers pushing through the crowd. The one in front was shorter than the rest of those short people, and he's the only one that didn't carry a gun. But the guy behind him was a big, tall, stout-looking fella, and he looked like a walking armory. He had a couple of long guns, pistol, ammunition belt, and I thought, well, that's the little guy's bodyguard. Mm-hmm. They came up to where I was. The little guy started talking. Looked like he was giving instructions to different people. And pretty soon they formed a little detail, and they motioned for me to go down the hill in this certain direction. I looked, and there was a path. And I thought, well, that's a good, legitimate thing. They want me to go. They're going to take me somewhere. But I was afraid to get in front of them. I thought, well, if they might just get me in front, and they could shoot me. So I motioned to one of these fellows on the detail, said, you come get in front of me. But he didn't understand, so I finally had to go up, approach him, and took hold of him very gently because he's holding this gun on me. And I was afraid he was going to shoot me in the stomach. But I took him by the arm, and I pulled him down to where that path was. Then I went back, got another one, and had to pull him down there. They didn't want to cooperate. I finally got a couple of them in front of me, and I got the rest of them behind me, and we went off down that hill. And when we got to the bottom of it, the guy in the lead, that Chinaman, stopped, pointed over to the left, and looked over there, and we saw where my plane had landed on a building over there. It was burning like crazy, and I thought, boy, whoever's in that thing is dead. Anyway, they hauled me off probably half or 3/4 of a mile away, and they put me in a little building for the day. A couple of guards on the outside, and that was my first day.
So they put you in some room alone.
They did.
You were all alone in this room you're talking
Yeah, just
about.
a little old building, and I sat there and had some of the villagers come up closer during the day and looking at me, but then I got hauled off that night to another place, and I stayed there. Another place, I don't know, 2-3 miles away maybe, and I stayed there in a little old building, in a little old room that wasn't by 6 by 8 feet probably, and stayed there a couple of days. But the guards were staying, 2 guards inside there with me at night, and they were just young 20-year-olds, and they were having a ball, entertaining each other, have a spit fight. And I know one night they were spitting around, and some had spit. They'd clear their throat and try to spit at each other and laugh and carry on. And they got spitting on me, and I raised up. I let out a big roar, like, and just a big roar to stop that, you know. And I thought, well, I have a rifle butt on the side of my head, but it didn't. I scared them to death, and they left me alone. Quit spitting all over the place. Well, this is where by myself there for a few days. After a couple of days, I discovered I couldn't have any feeling, so I took off my boots. I hadn't taken them off at night before because those guys were wearing nothing but tennis shoes. And I thought, well, they'll steal my boots, so I wouldn't take them off.
Mm-hmm.
But what couldn't feel anything, I took my boots and socks off, and my toes were black with frostbite. Scared me to death. First thing I thought of was, I was afraid I was going to have to amputate my feet. And I thought, where would that be done? Where would they cut off my toes or my whole foot? I really worried about that, but I went to rubbing my feet and rubbing. They were as numb as everything, cold as ice cube. But I eventually saved my feet. Nothing had to be amputated. Eventually I was taken off to a Korean village, 2-room schoolhouse. There was about 30 POWs in there. And one room had a little old bitty tin can of a stove. It was terribly cold that winter. It was temperatures going way below zero at night. So all these POWs were just crowded into this one room, and we stayed in there. It was a room about as big as a double-car garage, and we just laid out on the floor around the edge of that little room. I think we had a little bit of, trying to think, we had to keep the ice hole chopped open in the creek to get water. I mean, we had several of our group did the cooking in a little bitty building next to the schoolhouse. We had a little bit of rice in the morning, and at night we had a little bit of thin potato soup and a couple of little buns, little bolito kind of thing made out of rice flour. But 2 things were we were constantly faced with hunger and cold. There wasn't any way to get warm. We tried to get warm. I know when I'd been there a day or two, I volunteered to go down to chop open the white ice hole in the creek every morning because it gave me a chance to get outside. And I go down and chop open the ice hole. It'd be real thick with ice. And we'd be hauling water out of there with a chogi stick, which is long, 5 foot long. You've seen pictures of people carrying a bucket hung off of each end of that stick, a chogi stick, we call it. I go down and chop that ice hole open every morning. When I'd come back up to that schoolroom, I'd be covered with ice, and they out of sympathy, they'd back off and let me get a little bit closer to that little tin can of a stove we had. Anyway, they were harassing us all the time, holding us out for additional interrogation, and but we survived it.
We're talking with Allie Burton, who survived a POW camp in Korea. How many people ended up in that POW camp?
There's about 30 of them in that. But it varied every day because the Chinese would always pull somebody out for interrogation. Somebody would be out for a few hours or a day or two, so we might have 29 or 30 people or 31. Senior officer was a major, a Marine major, and they had him hauled out. They wouldn't let him organize us or talk to us, and they'd have him hauled out. He'd be gone sometime for weeks at a time, and bring him back in. He looked pretty haggard. They roughed him up, I guess. And then back shortly before we got out, before the fracas was over, it was springtime, and they put another approximately 30 people, so we had a total somewhere around 60 people that I was associated with. Most of the time I was with only about 30 people. You get to know people real well when you pack together like that close for 24 hours a day, week after week after week. We got to know each other pretty well. Funny collection of people. They had POW camps for officers, for NCOs, and for lower enlisted, but our bunch was a mixture. We had about 5 officers from the United Nations. We had a Australian, South African, Britisher, a Canadian, and they had Air Force officers like myself, had Army, Marine officers. We had some enlisted people mixed in with us, people, different branches of the service. It was a strange collection of people, but it made it more interesting, I guess.
Well, first of all, how long were you there, and how did you get your release?
My total POW time was about 10 months. That was enough. I'm glad it wasn't anymore, but 10 months was enough.
And how did you get released? What was that like?
When the cessation of hostilities was declared, they didn't have just an agreement to stop fighting, I think. Mm-hmm. And then they trucked us up to John at the exchange point, and we went across. It's a funny thing, I kept thinking the last minute before I was going to cross that line where the Americans were 3 feet away, Chinese on this side 3 feet away, and I thought the last minute when I go to step across that line, they're going to grab me and pull me back. But they didn't. I got across, and that was pretty good. Got to take a shower and started getting some food.
Real food.
Real food. But it was Liberation Day was a great experience.
So there was a prisoner exchange.
Yeah,
they got theirs back and then gave ours back.
Of course, there was a lot of problems. The reason it got a lot of delay in getting the hostilities, the exchange going, so many of the North Koreans that had been captured by the South, by our United Nations people, didn't want to go back up north.
They didn't want to be exchanged.
Yeah, the North Koreans and Chinese didn't want to go through with the cessation of hostilities. They were embarrassed because their soldiers didn't want to get back to their communist area, but finally it got done. And anyway.
So, Allie, of the prisoners that you were with, did all of them survive? Did all of them make it back alive? Yeah, they did. And through the years, did you stay in touch with any of them or hear from them again? I stay in touch with quite a few of them for a while, but the only one now, there's one, he lives in Phoenix. We get together every once in a while, and we talk on the phone.
but he's about five years younger than me. So he's getting up in age too.
He's only 95, though.
Yeah, he's just a youngster.
So, when you think about this country now and what you served to protect, what you endured, and where we are now, what do you think?
Well, I think we're in pretty bad shape. I cannot understand how we got so many people in this country that can't see the old standard, what I'm going to call American way of life. They seem to be just going in the opposite direction, which I cannot absolutely understand. The departure from the standard decent behavior is something I can't get a grasp on.
If those people that you're talking about, if you could influence them, if you could say something to turn them around, what would you tell them?
I guess I'd have to think about that one for a while. If I tried to tell any of those people something, they get real hostile. I know that. They don't take any instruction from real Americans.
Yeah.
I don't know where we get all these nutty people in this country. It's been coming on gradually, I guess. I think it was Khrushchev or somebody back in decades ago, the leader of the Soviet Union said, we'll whip you without firing a shot. We've been having a gradual departure away from church and from in our schools. We've taken our patriotism away to a great extent, I think, as I understand. But when we started taking religion out of our schools, I thought then and there, I said, well, that's going to lead to serious problems down the line. And here we are. If we don't get this country straightened out pretty soon, we're going to be going downhill even farther. We're going to lose our country. We've got some serious corrections to make.
Well, it's doable. Look at all you've endured. And here today at 100 years old after being in World War II and the Korean conflict, being a POW. So did you get to meet the president or any of that sort of stuff?
No. Well, yeah, President Eisenhower I did. Yeah. I was, for a period of time, I was instructor, Andrews Air Force Base, a jet instructor. And while assigned there, I was off. So somebody picked me to be what they call a White House aide, junior officers who served in the White House. And at the time, I was a captain. And for 1954, 55, I had additional duty besides a jet instructor. I served in the White House when they have special occasions, state dinners or receptions or special dignitaries coming to visit. And it was real interesting, and that was in Eisenhower's presidency. Didn't really have any one-on-one dealing with him particularly. Once in a while you might have something to relay to him, but it was real interesting anyway. The duty I had there, I was glad I had that because I have some fond memories of that duty at the time.
What was your ultimate rank before you retired?
I retired as lieutenant colonel.
What year did you retire?
1970.
You were in there a while. That's a long run.
Yeah. Anyway, I've had an interesting life. I've been blessed. I had excellent, outstanding Christian parents, and we had good schools back at those days. A lot of patriotism in the country back when I was growing up, and I've seen lots of changes through all these years I've been living. I can't recall all of it, but my memory is not 100%.
That's understandable. But you've raised a good family. I know some of them, and I know several of them, and some of the grandkids and great-grandkids, and so you've done pretty good.
Yeah.
We appreciate your service.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And I appreciate how you've always been encouraging to me. Allie used to come and call me Little Rush when I was on the air, and which was a high compliment.
Yeah, Harley, remember once I told you, when I hear you on the radio, I get kind of sad. Do you remember that conversation?
No.
You wanted to know why I was sad. I said, well, you're so good that I'm afraid we're going to lose you to a big city radio, and we won't have you in our Kerrville radio anymore.
I do remember that. I appreciate that.
Anyway, you do an excellent job, and we sure appreciate it. You add a lot to this society around here.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank
good
you.
Operation you run.
What do you think of the bunker? That's what we call this room.
It's neat. Very neat.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say to everyone?
Yeah, keep your head up, keep your eyes open, think America and what it used to be, what we're designed to be, what we're supposed to be. Keep your eye on the Constitution and our standard American way of life.
Amen. Well, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Allie Burton served in World War II, was shot down and held as a prisoner of war in Korea, and then later served in the White House. 100 years old now, born and raised in Kerrville, Texas. Yeah, that was fun. Now, we did that the other day. Allie, since I spoke with him, went in and got a pacemaker Friday. He's back out on the street today. That guy is amazing. So it's Veterans Day 2024. It's the Harley Show. Running a little bit behind, but that's well worth it, wasn't it?